With an update from the Bloomfield Hills School District is our good friend Pat Watson, and we check in with him via Zoom. I'm laughing. I'm just seeing the picture. Hey, I thought the beaches were closed, Pat Watson. We see a great picture of some palm trees and waves behind you.
Right, the beaches are closed, but not my own private virtual beach, which with today's weather forecast, I definitely need to foreshadow what my future might hold down the road.
I think these Zoom backgrounds are about the coolest thing that everyone's, putting up their own Zoom background. So I appreciate your effort there. I like your Zoom background, and I want to be in your virtual space too. Pat Watson, I appreciate your visit with us a little bit over a week ago here on the program. And not only did you share a lot of information, as we expect to hear again today, of what's going on in education, but I just think you had some of the clearest things to say, and I want you to know that I've been using one of your quotes from the last show every day, and I've incorporated it into my communications with people because I think it was so on target. It's one of the best things I've heard anyone say, and it perfectly applies to where we are at right now. Every single one of us, I'm sure you remembered saying, hope is not a plan. Hope is not a plan. Listen, we all hope, but you got to have a plan. And everything we're doing, I'm saying that, 50 times a day. I'll have to send you a check for that one. I hope you don't mind me borrowing your quote.
It's in the mail. I know. We're good.
So, that to me, that says it all. So I know you have hope in Bloomfield Hills, and I know you have a plan too. How are things going in your school district?
Going really, really well. We rolled out our continuous learning plan, and that's gone really well. Made it web-based, so parents have easy access to it. And now we're on to the next phases of planning, and part of that's about summer and providing a program for our students who may have not had the opportunity to be as engaged as they would have liked to have been, based on their family circumstances right now. And then looking at what the fall is going to be like, and whether or not we will be back in school. Or I remember years ago, and I know they did this down south, where they had an AM and a PM shift for students to come in. So is it, just trying to, not knowing what's going to happen, trying to plan for the unforeseeable, because no matter what happens, even if we're back in school and everything, everyone comes back, school has changed forever. And the other piece we're really looking at is just the mental health of our students when they do come back, because it's been very impactful for them to be out for so long, because for quite a few students, being at school is the safest place they can be.
Pat Watson, we have a great inspirational story from some students in your school district, as a matter of fact, that put together a website called Quarantine. I don't know if you're familiar with that site or not, but a couple of students from the Bloomfield Hills schools put the site together, Quarantine, and it is to help other teenagers. It's a teenager to teenager effort to help deal with some of the issues that teens have going on in their world. And they're it's hard being a teenager anyway, right? So that was a really good effort, and I'm glad that you recognize that is a big issue. It's tough for all of us, to deal with the emotional sides, and this has changed our world. So and I'm sure it's acute in the student population.
Right. And we know that, so we're trying to, figure that out. And then for the senior class, all those end of the year things you've waited for 18 years, trying to come up with creative ways that we can celebrate our seniors before they move forward. And what their journey looks like might be a little different in the fall as well. I know there's a couple of college campuses that already said we're not having students in dorms in the fall. And so your freshman year might start out, you're at home doing online learning again. So just a lot of unknowns. So like I said, it's kind of where our preparation is right now. How do we prepare for whatever is going to happen so that if we need to pivot, we can do it? And we all know schools traditionally are kind of slow to change and move. I always give the example, you can take a teacher, a history teacher from the 1900s, plop them down in the classroom, give them a podium and a book, and they can figure something out as far as teaching and instructing. But if you took that doctor from 1900 and put that doctor in Beaumont, I would argue they most likely couldn't even turn on the lights. So again, point being, sometimes education takes a while to change, but I think everyone's got the point that we need to be nimble. We need to be able to pivot within a couple day period, not a couple decade or century period. And I kind of said that earlier, that education has changed forever. And I think that's one of the big changes we're going to see, is that schools can adapt on the fly to best meet the needs of their students.
Well, Pat Watson, Superintendent of Schools in Bloomfield Hills. Listen, I know better than to get on the other side of a debate with you. But the reality is that I give your teachers and you an awful lot of credit. What I've seen has been absolutely amazing. You guys have embraced technology. It seems like you've done it at a snap of the fingers. You don't have everybody that's doing their distance learning thing online at home, but you got a ton of people. You got computers in the hands of people. You're feeding people. You're educators. Yes, a 1900 era educator would have a very different challenge in front of them. Today, I don't know. I think there's an awful lot of change, and I think your people have done a great job making all this happen. It isn't easy. I just look at all the technology I got in here. It changes every day. So, you guys have done a really good job dealing with that. So I don't want to get in a debate with you because there's no right or wrong on this, but I just want to give you credit and everyone in Bloomfield Hills and the other districts for doing the amazing things you've done. You guys have accomplished so much in a short period of time. But to turn this into a question, who would have thought, really? When this whole thing happened and they closed school for the first day, we're thinking, okay, maybe a couple of weeks, maybe this will be a month. And now you're right. It's not inconceivable that this fall we won't be back in classrooms. So are you building a plan for that, Pat Watson?
Yeah, and kind of backing up, when we first went out, we have put together like a temporary plan, and then we used those 3 weeks to work on a plan with the expectation school would not resume. And, I had the fortune of speaking with a teacher in China who oversees the international school and how they've been closed for a long time. And she kind of felt that, this is where we were in China as well. We shut for a little bit. You probably are going to be like us and not reopen. And so we're really able to plan that way. So we're planning, what can we do to help students during the summer? What is school going to look like if we reopen? What is school going to look like if we don't reopen? What is school going to look like if we reopen, but we need to stagger how much contact students have? So for example, the high school, do we decide that students come down with their teacher and get their lunch and eat in the room? That way they keep some social distancing so you don't have 800 kids in the lunchroom. What do after school activities look like? Do we have an AM, PM shift? So just some of the ideas that, I'm kind of writing down and as we prepare to move forward. But whatever decisions are made, whatever happens, I'm 100% confident we'll be prepared. I look at the work the teachers have done in the Bloomfield Hills School District, and it's truly second to none. And they've gone far and above what I would have expected them to do, and I'll be forever grateful and thankful for that. And they've really done everything they could to help students, which has been just amazing.
So our students that are going to be wrapping up their school year pretty soon this year, do you think there was a big gap? I mean, you're getting to the end of this school year now. Do you think there's been a big gap in the education that they received this year because of all that has gone on? And I hope you don't mind me asking you this frank, direct question. Or do you think that for the most part they got virtually everything they would have gotten, or maybe halfway there? What are your thoughts?
Great question. So I would break it up by grade level. If you're looking at seniors, knowing that a lot of seniors are, whether it's IB or AP testing started in May, and teachers are kind of winding down, I think the seniors are pretty close to getting everything they would have received. And if you go all the way down to the elementary level, there is that time from mid-March until mid-June where students receive a lot of instruction, especially when it comes to reading, i.e. literacy and math. So with our online program, we're trying to make sure we cover some of the most essential things they need to know. Then as we build our summer program, we'll try to fill in those gaps. So rather than taking a summer school class, whether it's virtual or in person, which we don't know what we can offer yet, or a hybrid of both, and saying, well, you were a first grader, so now you're going to do this, so you're more prepared for second grade. it'll be you were in first grade, you register for the first grade class again, and then we try to fill in any gaps that you might have so that you're at the same spot or maybe even further than you would have been if you were able to be in school for the full time. So there will be more gaps the younger the students are.
And you're in one of the best equipped, best financed districts in the state, maybe the country, in a very affluent community. Do you think the same is true, if you're willing to comment on this, in some of the other districts like Detroit and Pontiac that are on the other side of that continuum?
No, not at all. It's nowhere near equitable, not just with the funding, but also maybe with the resources that people might have. I know my son, who's an education major at Wayne State, he did his pre-student teaching, and he was having a conversation with students, and he said, well, when you were young, you went to the zoo, so you know what this animal looks like. And he was shocked by the number of students that said, no, I've never been to the Detroit Zoo. I've never been to a zoo in my life. I've never left this community. So there is definitely a disparity, without a doubt.
Is there anything that school districts should be doing? I know you talked to the other superintendents, and this is really more of an issue for the state and federal government. I recognize that. But, right here at home, is there anything we could do to help each other out?
That's a great question. I'm not sure what the answer is. I mean, we've talked about funding. We've talked about, I know personally I looked at the model that was used in Washington, D.C., years ago, as far as you almost have like boarding school for students in urban areas. I'm not sure what the solution is going to be. This is not a new problem, right?
No, this is
something
not.
that's been talked about over and over and over again. My best guess is that when we come out of this, that people will have or yearn more for innovation within schools, and thinking outside the box and doing things a little differently, and trying to meet students where they are and where their interests are. And maybe that can propel some of the changes that we need in education.
Well, I think the interesting thing, and maybe it's a good time to have that conversation again, because maybe with all the other change that's going on, maybe it'll be somewhat easier to address some of those issues. But Pat Watson, thank you for joining us. Thank you for everything you're doing in Bloomfield Hills, and in particular, to be a little selfish, thank you for letting us broadcast the show every day on 88.1 WBFH, The Biff, broadcasting from Bloomfield Hills High School. We really appreciate that. Makes a huge difference, and we're able to reach a lot of people. And we look forward to continuing a dialogue with you. Anything else you want to share for folks in your community and around Oakland County before we say so long?
I guess last thing I'll say is, we all know these are stressful times, but I think, again, now more than ever, it's the time to make sure you treat everyone with dignity and respect, because everyone deserves that, even if their opinions might differ than yours. And I'll kind of leave you with that.
Well said. We're going to need a big dose of that as we work through the next couple of weeks. Pat Watson, thank you very much. I appreciate you joining us on the MegaCast today. Good to have you on board.